Today we will study about simple distillation process. So this is a technique which is used for separating the miscible liquids. It is used for separating miscible liquids. Miscible liquids means which mix uniformly with each other. Like for suppose if I take chloroform and aniline and ether and toluene, like acetone and water, like alcohol and water. So all these liquids, they mix uniformly with each other. To separate these liquids from one another, the technique that we use is simple distillation process. So how do we separate the liquids here? What is the principle? The principle that we use is difference in boiling points. The difference in boiling points of the liquids must be more than 25 Kelvin. There must be a difference of 25 Kelvin in the boiling points. For suppose as an example, if I take chloroform plus aniline mixture. Now I just want to separate these two from one another. When we observe the boiling points of chloroform, it will be 344 Kelvin, whereas aniline will be 457 Kelvin. Now what is the difference in boiling points of these two liquids? It is more than 25 Kelvin. Now here we can use the process simple distillation. And what is the technique here? We just do two processes here. We just do boiling process, that is vaporization, and then followed by condensation. We take a liquid mixture and we subject them to two different processes, that is boiling and then followed by condensation. What happens in boiling? The liquid will be changing into vapor state, and what happens in condensation? The vapors will be turning back into liquid. So let me explain the same with the example here. Everybody focus on the experimental setup for simple distillation. This is Bunsen burner, which is used for heating purpose. This is round bottom flask. I'm just mentioning it as RB flask. Round bottom flask. We take the liquid mixture in this flask. We take the mixture into it. Okay. Enough. This is thermometer. What is the purpose of thermometer here? Thermometer shows the constant reading during the boiling process. And this is condenser. It is Liebig's condenser. Now what is the purpose of condenser? It serves the purpose of cooling. One side of the condenser we allow the cold water, and from the other side we get hot water. Cold water in and hot water out. So we just circulate the water so that the vapors which are formed and which are passing through the condenser, they undergo the cooling process. So in the condenser what happens basically is cooling process takes place. That means condensation. So let us take the same example, that is chloroform and aniline. So we have taken the mixture in round bottom flask and we have started heating the mixture with the help of Bunsen burner. The chloroform which is having the less boiling point, so that turns into vapor first. So when we heat the mixture, which liquid vapors are going to form first? The chloroform, because it is having lesser boiling point compared to aniline. So these are the vapors of whom? These are the vapors of chloroform. Chloroform formula is CHCl3. Now these vapors, they enter into the condenser. So once they are entered into condenser, what happens? They undergo the cooling process. Now what happens in cooling process? The vapors turn back into liquid, and this liquid will be collected in a receiver flask. This is receiver flask, and the liquid which is collected over here, it is called as distillate. So distillate is the liquid which is collected in distillation process. And what is the distillate here? It's nothing but chloroform. In our example of chloroform and aniline mixture, the chloroform is having lesser boiling point, so that vaporizes first and then it later condenses, and that will be the distillate which is formed here. Now what about the aniline? Aniline will stay back. Aniline will stay back in the round bottom flask. Okay, because it is having more boiling point. Till it reaches its boiling point, it will not vaporize. So based on the difference in boiling points, we are separating the two miscible liquids, and this process is called what? Simple distillation process. Like if you see in the round bottomed flask, boiling process is taking place. In the condenser, condensation process is taking place. Chloroform will be collected as a distillate and aniline will be left behind in the round bottomed flask. When do you decide that you have to stop the heating? Once the whole chloroform is collected, then you will see a change in thermometer readings. Till the whole chloroform boils, there will be constancy in thermometer reading. It shows 334 Kelvin only. Once you see the rise in temperature, then we have to understand that the chloroform is vaporized already. Now that is the reason temperature is rising. So once you see the change in temperature, then you have to stop the heating process. So this is how we separate the two miscible liquids in simple distillation process. There are certain things which we need to remember when we are applying the simple distillation technique. First thing, we have to consider miscible liquids, the liquids which mix uniformly with each other. Commercial point of view, it is also used to separate the water from salt. To purify the salt water also, we use simple distillation technique. Salt will be left behind and water will be evaporated, collected in the form of distillate. And there is an important thing which we need to remember. The liquids must not decompose when we boil them. Liquids should not decompose when we boil. That means they must be thermally stable. If they decompose, we don't have the same liquid. Instead, we will have some different products. So when we use simple distillation, we just have to take care that the liquids are thermally stable. They are not decomposing when we boil them. And what about the impurities? Impurities must not be volatile. Impurities must be non-volatile in nature. That means they should not vaporize. And the main organic liquid which we want to separate, that must be volatile in nature. In the sense, when we boil, it must vaporize. Okay. For suppose I just feel, if you take the previous mixture of chloroform and alanine, and if there are certain impurities, what must be the nature of impurities? They must be non-volatile. Chloroform is the liquid that I want to collect, so it must be volatile in nature. The main organic component which we want to separate must be volatile in nature. That means it should turn into vapor form, and the impurities must be non-volatile. And what must be the difference in boiling points here? It will be more than 25 Kelvin. Now using this technique, what are the liquids that we can separate? We can separate benzene, toluene, acetone, water, carbon tetrachloride, etc. using this technique. Okay, I'll give you two examples. The first example I already gave you, that is chloroform and aniline. Chloroform is having lesser boiling point here. It is 334 Kelvin, so it will be vaporized first. That will be collected first, and aniline stays back in the distillation flask. Now another example, we can separate ether from toluene using the same technique. Ether is having 308 Kelvin boiling point, whereas toluene is having 384 Kelvin boiling point. No need to remember the boiling points, just for the sake of understanding. When you see the difference in boiling points, it is more than 25 Kelvin. So we can apply simple distillation process. So this is all about simple distillation process. If there are any doubts, please mention in the comment section. Thank you.